In a news alert tonight, right now, a Columbia man is in custody after holding a woman against her will and barricading himself in his apartment. Good evening, I'm Marissa Hollowed. A man is charged with 4 felonies in Boone County tonight after he used a weapon to force a woman to have sex with him. They'll have to find new ways, though, to fund school safety, and so will all Missouri schools for that matter. But from who? That's the tricky part here. In a crime alert tonight, Moberly police are trying to find the person or people responsible for throwing mailboxes off of an overpass. The convention is following different themes each night. You recall Mondays was Make America Safe Again. A house is now in danger of sliding into the Lake of the Ozarks. Important information, Dan. I know we had a lot of people concerned about this one. An agency accused of sending millions of dollars to Iraq more than a decade ago is finally admitting to federal charges. Summer strep is keeping mid-Missouri doctors' offices busy this week. The state's highest-ranking Republican is speaking out about the apparent suicide of Spence Jackson.
You need to get out.
No, I don't.
That was the last time we heard Melissa Click speak, but tonight that's all changing. And of course, we'll follow that. Thank you, Lucas. In other news tonight, right now we are working to find out what caused a crash in Columbia that sent one person to the hospital. Chief Meteorologist Sharon Ray is tracking those hotter temperatures. Extra troopers will be out catching speeders and enforcing traffic laws. We have breaking news for you tonight on ABC 17 News at 6. Right now, more agencies are joining the search for an escaped convict who was last seen here in mid-Missouri.
Who's complaining when we hit 70 during the afternoon?
Not me.
No, I'm not even.
And it was a hot day for the first day.
It was very hot.
Jim Sturk has announced his resignation at San Diego State University. We also know that the UN Board of Curators typically holds a meeting like this one when they vote and then announce a new hire. I have the indictment right here. It charges Haley with 4 counts of assault. Austin, I know you spend a lot of time around the football team. Was there any indication that something like this was going to happen?
No, that's a great question.
Here with their guns drawn at 122 Redwood Road. So you can see there's about 200 to 300 people here. I spoke with the lead clinician at Planned Parenthood of Kansas and Mid-Missouri today. Some people were calling that interview awkward. An armed robbery happened here on Lakeview near Stone Street after a Craigslist transaction. So if you haven't made dinner for your family yet, come on by, pick something up, and pick up something a little extra for someone in need. Have a great night.
Kimmel's next. Good night.
I found right now the number of reported rapes in Columbia is at an all-time high. Residents in one neighborhood are especially concerned after a man allegedly raped multiple women living there and then committed suicide. Many living in the East Campus neighborhood point to one issue connecting all the crimes. It's too dark.
A man came and he started trying to attack me.
Abby Jensen describes the night she no longer felt safe living on East Campus.
I was scared for sure. I couldn't sleep that night. Sexual assaults, burglaries.
Jensen's friend, Sarah Sprick, is scared too.
Our front door, the window was just smashed through.
After someone tried to break into the house she's renting, Sprick started a petition asking the city of Columbia for more lighting on East Campus.
It's completely pitch black, and I mean, you go from being under light to complete darkness.
Street lighting is one of those things that, believe it or not, it's controversial.
But a change isn't that simple.
When someone from an existing neighborhood wants a street light added, they need to check in with their neighbors, get some buy-in, make sure that their neighbors are okay with the street light being added.
And many homeowners say they don't want more lights.
And I always feel pretty safe wherever I am throughout the Columbia. So a lot of that might be perception versus a reality type of thing.
The lighting in East Campus was first put in around 1940. It has not been updated since. The city did receive a complaint in 2014 about the lighting on Anthony Street, where the most rapes have occurred, but said it tested the area and found the lighting to be, quote, adequate. The question I had trouble getting a clear answer to is what defines adequate lighting?
It's hard to articulate how this is from the cities how we go about it.
Water and Light's stance in this is that it's really a community decision.
Case by case, yeah, it really is like that.
47, 48. I decided to test the lighting on my own with a light meter app I downloaded, measuring brightness between streetlights. I'm standing directly between 2 streetlights here on Anthony Street, and the lux measure is 2. For perspective, our TV studio has a lux measure of 470. Here, right in the middle of these 2 streetlights, I'm getting a measure of 5 lux. I found the Magnolia Falls subdivision
3, 4,
4, 5, 6.
And a few others to be brighter than East Campus.
That's a scary street, too.
The girls hope to see more police if their petition isn't enough.
They will be on the lookout, making sure to not be reactive, but be preventative.
Sprick plans to bring her petition to the city council. I'll be there when that happens.
No, you need to get out. You need to get out.
No, I don't.
That was the last time we heard Melissa Click speak, but tonight that's all changing as she finally breaks her silence. Click reached out to ABC 17 News for her first ever interview following that infamous viral video and an assault charge that was later deferred. Tonight I talked to Click about the viral moment, the fallout, and what's next.
What happened after that happened really quickly.
Do you regret it?
Sure, I regret it. When I watch the video, I feel sorry. I feel embarrassed by my actions.
Hey, you want to help me get this reporter out of here? I need some muscle over here.
I never was calling for violence. It's just something that came out. I'm hoping that the people who will watch this interview will be able to identify with saying something in a hectic and flustering moment that they didn't mean, and you can only hope in a moment like that that you're not being recorded and that it won't be put on YouTube.
Have you ever had contact with professional activists before?
I'm sure I have met people who are professional activists, but no, I am not a professional activist, nor have I been involved with professional activists.
And had you, been in touch with Mike Middleton before that at any point?
No.
Jonathan Butler during his hunger strike, were you in touch with him during that point?
No, I've never met Jonathan Butler.
Just at the homecoming parade?
I mean, I stood with him, but we didn't speak.
Okay, so you've never had a conversation, interaction with him? Not even afterward?
No, I don't recall so.
Just so I understand, the first kind of interaction you ever had with Concerned Student 1950 was at that homecoming parade?
Absolutely. That was another moment that for me happened very quickly, and I was really moved by the students' message and disappointed with the crowd's angry reaction.
Do not engage!
Engage. What the are you talking about?
I stepped forward, not knowing these students at all, to stand with them to let them know that they wouldn't be alone.
Were you aligning your beliefs with their movement as well?
I saw them as a student group that was asking the university, the administration, for help. And so I guess what I aligned myself with was helping students who were in need of help.
So not necessarily their set of beliefs in this movement?
Well, I never had any discussions or consultations with them about what actions they were taking in the movement. So I wasn't that engaged with them to know intimately what they were doing and what they were trying to accomplish.
Oh, a lot of people say, hey, you're a communications professor. You know about the First Amendment. Why did this happen the way it did?
Well, I think context is really important. I didn't see any police present on campus that day. And then to think back about how MU students, staff, and faculty were the only ones present on the quad to keep the crowd calm. I think that raises a lot of questions about who was in charge of the university that day.
Were you surprised when you were charged with assault?
I wasn't surprised that I was charged given the politically charged nature of the video. I think that the prosecutor was under a lot of pressure to have people feel that he held me accountable. But I do think that ultimately, because he deferred and dismissed the charge, he believed that I shouldn't be found guilty of misdemeanor assault. And, I believe that it's important to realize that many incidents that could have been considered assault happened that day on Carnahan Quad.
You have been the target of many lawmakers right now. Putting the university under a lot of pressure, talking about budget cuts. You've kind of been the poster of that. What has that been like for you, having the legislature be so involved?
Well, I think it's fairly common these days that public universities' missions are finding themselves at odds with the boards and the legislatures that govern and fund them. Difficulties with the Missouri legislature have a long history involving politics and money. So yes, maybe I have become the poster child of this current battle. I think that if that video hadn't been recorded, somebody else would be the face of it because the struggle was already there.
Have you ever considered that stepping down would be a good option for the university as a whole?
I do believe that the mistakes that I made that day should be put in the greater context of my 12 years at the University of Missouri.
So what's next for you?
Well, I hope I'm put back in my classroom soon. My students want me back. I'm ready to be back in my job. I don't believe I'm a danger to anyone. I have a lot to give the University of Missouri still, so I am awaiting good news from the Board of Curators that I can go back to the classroom. And I'm going to stay and fight for my job.
Once the cameras were off and I was walking Melissa Click to the door after the interview, she said to me, quote, "I hope people see me as a person and not a monster," end quote. You can check out the entire nearly half-hour interview for yourself. It's all posted on abc17news.com. 8 times a week. On average, that's how often someone in Columbia has called 911 reporting shots fired or heard this year. And the problem's not getting better. About 70% of those calls have come in during the last 5 months. And it's happening in public. This shooting happened on the business loop just last week and sent a person to the hospital. The trigger man is still on the loose. Tonight, in a special report, I talked to police, people living in the neighborhoods where crimes are occurring, and even some criminals already behind bars for past shootings, trying to get some answers about what's going on.
Like, I'm locked up right now for a murder.
Today, Lamar Mayfield is 18. I met with him at South Central Correctional Center, his home now until he's about
like 28, 27.
When he was just 15, he killed 17-year-old Brian Rankin Jr.
Some dude in the passenger seat, man, tried to give him a gun, whatever. When I seen the gun, I had already had mine, so I put mine out, shot dude.
That guy that was in the passenger seat?
You were with Brian Rankin the night he was killed.
Yeah.
Is Nicholas Thomas.
So did you have a gun?
Nah, I ain't never had no gun.
Prosecutors say watching his friend die fueled Thomas to kill in retaliation, which he denies. Thomas, now 21, is spending the rest of his life in the Jefferson City Correctional Center for killing Lamar Mayfield's friend, 17-year-old Travion Marshall.
Real cool dude of mine, man. It's crazy how he had to die, but you know what I'm saying, at the same time, we all knew what we was doing.
Joshua Murray is also serving 10 years at Missouri Eastern Correctional Center for first-degree assault and second-degree burglary related to this incident. Mayfield and Thomas tell me they have no gang affiliation, but Mayfield says gangs are operating right now in Columbia.
Yeah. Are there gangs in Columbia?
Yes, there are gangs in Columbia.
I talked with a spokesperson for Columbia Police who confirms 3 to 4 gangs exist. Mayfield says 2 of the biggest are called Squad Up and Young Money.
Usually gangs are based either on geographical proximity, so maybe that or they grew up together.
For this story, I also met with Shayon Prince, who's in the Moberly Correctional Center for first-degree burglary for a home invasion on West Texas Avenue in 2014, where a suspect was shot and killed. His bond was originally set at $1 million for his alleged ties to Squad Up. He maintains he's not a gang member and
there's no real gangs in Columbia, Missouri.
I reached out to a sergeant with CPD's Street Crimes Unit. No one from the department wanted to comment, but the spokesperson tells me the unit is actively trying to control the gang violence.
They essentially go out and they are searching for the career criminals. So they will do a lot of street narcotics busts, a lot of intelligence information.
The Street Crimes Division faces challenges with gang activity.
There's always a concern sometimes with witness cooperation. And so I think we've seen that in some of our incidents with shots fired.
Loose lips, sink ships, man. If you tell them something, you played a part in. So to tell on somebody else, you got to admit what you did. And if somebody is shooting at you, man, this is not a game. They're trying to take your life so they can keep theirs, you know what I'm saying? So you got to have the same mentality to take their life so you can keep living.
It may be this shoot or be shot mentality that's keeping Columbia's streets saturated with gun violence.
I'm a native of Columbia, and I have never seen Columbia like this, with this much shooting and violence.
Lorenzo Lawson reaches out to young kids through the Youth Empowerment Zone to help get them on the right track early.
These kids have been taught the way you solve problems is you fight and you get them before they get you.
The city created a task force on community violence to address street crime. This came shortly after a drive-by shooting in downtown Columbia. We caught up with Councilman Michael Trapp, who was critical in starting the task force, to ask about progress.
There's been ongoing implementation efforts, but we have not conveyed those to the citizens very well. And so there's been some discontent, feeling that the recommendations of the task force have just been sitting there collecting dust, which is not at all the case.
But violent crime is on an upward trend in the city right now. That red line you're seeing is violent crime so far this year. The green line is violent crime last year. The blue is the 5-year average.
Bullets have no boundaries, and that's the one biggest issue that you see within this town is it may be gang related, but there are victims that are getting injured, in the process.
Here are just a few of you we've talked to in the last 3 months that have been in the crossfire of these shots.
I'm very scared.
I hear it and I wake up and I automatically check on my children, make sure they're okay.
Why here? Why did that happen in front of our house?
This violence in this community is cancer. And if we don't treat it and proactively try to stop it, it's going to spread.